I'm What You Need. Watch my channel. If you like what you see, you can like, share, subscribe. You can even donate via PayPal. I don't have the link though. You'll have to ask me in the chat if you want to. All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. This stream is brought to you by L.I.V.E products. L.I.V.E, live now, we're live now. We have a range of snacks. We have nuts. We also have granola. We have granola with raisins, and we have granola with mint and chocolate. That's granola with mint and chocolate. This is granola with raisins. And we also have nuts. We have small nuts. And we also have big nuts. Now, this is only available in the Trinidad and Tobago area. This is Trinidad and Tobago's flag. We had Independence Day while you guys in America had borrow day, is it? Labor Day? Labor Day you guys had. We also have L.I.V.E drinks here. We have a range of drinks. We have it in small bottles. We also have it in big bottles. This is beetroot. We also have flavors like lime, orange, Morby, sorrel, lemon, fruit punch. We also have peanut and sea moss. They're available. So if you're in the Trinidad and Tobago area, check out the L.I.V.E products that we have. L.I.V.E, live now, we're live now. Now, let's get into what we're talking about here. The Chicago Bulls. You know, everything's about truth and reconciliation. I'll talk boxing right after this. This is not going to take too long. So, for you guys to understand what happened, why the Bulls was dismantled, why there was hate to the management of the Bulls, let's get into it. Jerry Krause was the guy that basically found Michael Jordan and recruited him. He was, I think, the number 3 pick in the NBA draft at the time. Jerry Krause wanted to rebuild the Bulls. The Bulls was nothing, right? The Bulls was at the bottom of the conference. It was Central Division, Eastern Conference. So he was building back the Bulls. And so to do that, he decided to get this star player, this franchise player, Michael Jordan, was an outstanding player. And Jerry Krause was really good. He had a good eye for scouting for talent. And Jerry Krause, he recruited Michael Jordan in 1984 and began to reconstruct the Bulls team around him. Now, Jerry Krause was able to do this successfully twice. He did it from 1984 all the way up till 1991 when the Bulls won the championship. He also did it again. He started reshaping the Bulls in 1984 all the way up till 1996. And then he got the Bulls' demise as well. It's because of Jerry Krause that every single person who eventually the Bulls' success. So the man who organized that was the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, Jerry Krause. Okay, and this is something that people don't give credit where credit is deserved. This is Jerry Krause did that. Okay, no Jerry Krause, no Bulls, no successes, no championships. Jerry Krause said something very offensive in 1998 where he said organizations won championships, and he said the team and the members of the team, the coaching staff and the team, they alone don't win championships, which is true. It was taken in the wrong way. Of course, when Jerry Krause said that, it was at also a very bad time when he said it. He said it at a time when CC Motion, what's up, my brother, 100%. Yeah, we can talk a little boxing in between. CC Motion, 1998. Thank you for coming through. This is going to be a short stream, though, but I need to talk about it because I believe the truth of the situation needs to be critically assessed and identified, because I think that's the only way there can be reconciliation with the Bulls. And I'm going to give you from different people's perspectives. I'm going to give you from Jerry Krause's perspective. Jerry Krause, of course, Krause was a Jewish guy. And also from the perspective of Michael Jordan, from the perspective of Phil Jackson, from the perspective of Scottie Pippen, from the perspective of Bill Cartwright, John Paxson, who's right now the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, Horace Grant, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to give you from different perspectives because I think it's important for everybody to see the different perspectives and make peace with one another, okay? Because the legacy of the Bulls and the future generation of the Bulls depends on it. The franchise, I think that particularly the bigger figures, the bigger figures of the Bulls, there needs to be peace between them. And, different people see things differently, and they have their truths to the situation. And it's important for somebody who's neutral to be able to see the different points of view of the different people, the good, the bad, and the ugly of their points of views, and be able now to give them a clearer picture so we can move forward. It's very important to understand that each piece of the puzzle was critical in the success of the Chicago Bulls. And of course, one of the more important pieces is Michael Jordan. Okay. No Michael Jordan, no Chicago Bulls. Okay. This is just a fact. We have to live with that. And Jerry Krause built a team around Michael Jordan. And the brilliance of Jerry Krause is this: he's able to identify talent that's not well known. Scottie Pippen, Jerry Krause was very certain that Scottie Pippen was a perfect, what's the word I'm looking for? Perfectly compatible to allow him and Michael Jordan to lead those Bulls to success. He was perfectly made. At the time, there was no Tracy McGrady. At the time, there was no Penny Hardaway. At the time, there was no LeBron James. There was Scottie Pippen. And the mindset of Scottie Pippen and the desire to learn by Scottie Pippen and the work ethic of Scottie Pippen is what allowed the success. This guy was a great scout. Jerry Krause has not gotten the kind of praise he deserves to get. Unfortunately for him, and yes, he was not a perfect human being. And yes, certain things he did rub people the wrong way. And yes, he didn't always explain his moves particularly to the players and the coaching staff. And he made certain moves as a general manager where he should have. We're not even disputing this. He should have consulted with the players, the key players, the leaders of the team, the coaches of the team. When he replaced Charles Oakley with Bill Cartwright, that was not, he didn't consult with Michael Jordan. He didn't speak with the coach. Maybe he spoke with the coaching staff, but he didn't let his star player know this, right? He made that mistake. Now, and when it came to the second repeat, when Dennis Rodman had to be brought into the team, a critical player again, he did not make that mistake of not letting Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen know. But back then he made the mistake of he just made the trade. And that was horrible, okay? Because this is the guy the rest of the team has to play with, okay? Now, so I'm just saying, there were mistakes made, okay? Jerry Krause wasn't a perfect guy. There were certain things he said to players and to Phil Jackson and to the, that, again, yes, okay, you are the guy orchestrating this thing. You are the guy recruiting players and putting them there. We get that. But he overstepped his boundaries a number of times, telling Michael Jordan, we own you. You have to do what we say. No. The final say is with Michael Jordan. And the way how Jerry Krause Jerry Krause was a great recruiter. He was great at putting pieces on a chessboard, but he didn't understand the game to the extent to which a coach understands the game. See, it wasn't his call to tell Michael Jordan, you are not going back in this game, or you have to stay because the doctor said X, Y. No, the call was with Michael Jordan and with his coach. Because there's a mental aspect to basketball that no doctor, no expert in the field, these are professional athletes and competitive professional athletes. And they must have the final say in what they do with their bodies, how far they can take their bodies, as well as the coach who would know the athletes very well, working with the athletes and know if they could push their bodies and what could be done. The coach would be responsible for, the physical therapist and the people who do the conditioning and what could be done and so on, so on, so on, so on. So in sports, you push athletes, right? Now, Jerry Krause was the general manager. Yes, you're the general manager, but you're not supposed to micromanage the talent. That's not your job. Your job is the general manager, under which you have people who manage the athletes. That's why you brought a coaching staff. That's why you have the physical therapist. That's why you have an X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G under you. You are there to oversee everything, right? But you're not there to micromanage things. So again, Jerry Krause was learning on the job. He was the new general manager. John Weinstein had brought him in and so on. CC Motion 1998. Shout out to you. Bingo, spitting facts. Yes, sir. So I say all of this to say one of the big issues that started off the clash between Michael Jordan and Jerry Weinstein was Michael Jordan wanted to go back and play for the Bulls after he had gotten injured. His doctors, the many doctors that he went to, advised him not to do so. Jerry Krause decided to try and strong arm Michael Jordan into not going out there and playing. Some of his coaching staff was for what Jerry Krause was saying, and some of them were in disagreement, and they were siding with Michael Jordan. So there was a split in the coaching staff at the time. For example, Tex Winter, he thought that what Michael Jordan was doing was reckless. Whereas the coach at the time, he was like, if we could get Michael Jordan back in the game, I'm all for it. And then other assistant staff, again, they were for what Michael Jordan was doing because they felt like Jerry Krause was overstepping his boundaries, that it was really up to the player, and the player would have to deal with the consequences thereafter. And so, Jerry Krause tried to say that, we own you. No, you don't own players. You're a manager. You're there to manage them. You're there to serve them in managing them. Yet you don't own anybody. And this is something that, again, thankfully Michael Jordan understood that, and he didn't take shit. And so he ended up in the game before, but there was a clash between him and Jerry Krause early. And, Jerry Krause felt like he had control over the players because he selected them. And your job is selecting them and managing the organization. It doesn't mean you own anybody. And that's where he went wrong again. Now, having said that, there are a number of things that Michael Jordan did in lashing back out at him, which were wrong himself. Michael Jordan was wrong to mock Jerry Krause in front of all the other teammates. And that attitude was taken up by the teammates and by Scottie Pippen and by, and John Weinstein. He never corrected that as the owner. The owner, he sort of stayed out of it, the whole thing. And that was also to the peril of the team. And eventually destroyed the team in a sort of way because there was this very toxic relationship between Michael Jordan and Jerry Weinstein. And no one tried to fix it or to have those two men sit in a room, hash it out with a neutral person there and say, hey, Jerry, that's wrong. No, Michael, that's wrong. You can't do that. Now, you guys got to work together somehow, some way. Nobody really sat down and set them straight. Jerry was brilliant at recruiting. He really was. He was a brilliant mind at recruiting teams. But because of that gift, he felt that he had a say in everything that these teams did. And if they didn't go his way, then, the highway is the next thing. Jerry was responsible for Phil Jackson, for example, becoming head coach of the Chicago Bulls. Of course, Phil Jackson pitched to Jerry what he saw and, you know, how it should be approached. And Jerry eventually, with all the successes that Phil Jackson was having and the fact that Phil Jackson worked with the Bulls as a team, he locked out everything and he led the Bulls without having them distracted. So anything happening outside of, you know, because Michael Jordan was he had a whole entourage and that was a distraction. So Phil closed off all sessions. Jordan's entourage was out. It was inner circle. And unfortunately, Phil did not include, and rightfully so, he did not include Jerry Krause in that inner circle. So when Phil started to have the team bond together, it was off of a sort of toxic thing where, because Jerry rubbed different team members the wrong way, because Jerry saw them as his product. And he sort of saw them as he kind of owned them in a sort of way, even though he didn't really interface with them, you know, but he kind of looked down on them and he treated them accordingly. And even though he was not, you know, people make it sound like Jerry was this terrible tyrant kind of guy, but he wasn't really that. All right. He wasn't a tyrant, you know, but he was somewhat condescending because he was like, I picked you, you work for me. Kind of like that. And Michael saw that from the get-go. And Michael wasn't, you know, so Michael led sort of a charge against that. And then a lot of players were treated sort of bad by Jerry. It's almost like, how to explain it to you, Jerry sort of went on a power trip with the players. He saw them as hirelings. Like, I hired you. Right? And you need to respect me and you need to address me respectfully. And Michael Jordan pushed back on that because Michael Jordan, as you know, is a very intense, competitive guy. And he pushed back on that. And as a result of that, the other team members, when they would, you know, try to interface with management, there was this rift between them. And, you know, Jerry was kind of dismissive of players wanting and aspiring to certain things that maybe he had in his room and his office, and they may made a comment about it, and he was like, "Nah, you can't have that," you know, or "No, you can't." No, and I'm not saying that the players themselves weren't characters themselves, because that Bulls team had a lot of characters in it, and even if they're jokingly doing certain things, you know, the way how he may respond, but the thing about it is he sort of had an ego that he brought this all to be, and he felt like he deserved the credit for it. And unfortunately, instead of getting the credit he deserved to have, which was, without Jerry, we wouldn't have the Bulls team. This is just what it is. And he was brilliant at scouting. It is what it is. All right. But he created a monster. He made himself look like a monster. He was seen as negatively. And the fact that a lot of people think that he was the person that destroyed the Bulls. After their tremendous successes, he destroyed them in order to sort of preserve himself. And the fact that he resented the fact that he never got the credit he deserved. He was seen as number one villain instead of seen as the person who actually caused this thing to happen, which is sad. And so a lot of things were going on, a lot of variables in the equation, but the fact that Jerry was disrespected in front of all of the coaching staff and so on by Michael Jordan, that should never have happened. That should never have happened. And no one was there to check that. And it was important that they acknowledged his expertise in bringing the Bulls to be what it was and building up the team as it was, whereas checking him on the amount of power that he had. As men, they should have checked him on that. And Michael, in a way, checked him on it, but still sort of resented him for overreaching. And so what Michael started making fun of him and mocking him publicly. in public events, that was wrong. And that should have been handled behind closed doors. Jerry had the power to run the administration. He did not have the power to micromanage players or micromanage coaches. They weren't just products, they were people like himself, and you needed to have respect for that. Having said that, Michael Jordan was absolutely wrong to denigrate Jerry in front of players, in front of the coaches, particularly the players, the younger players, in which Scottie Pippen, later on in 1998, when he was drunk, or 1997, I think he was yelling out to Jerry to trade him. Scottie Pippen was done. He wanted to trade because Scottie Pippen had taken a deal in 1991 in which, regardless of who advised him or not, Jerry and Rhinestone and Jordan and even the coach, they advised him not to take the deal. He took it because he needed the money at the time. And of course, the player salaries went up and so much. And Scottie was the lowest paid player. And Scottie wanted the deal renegotiated with Jerry Krause and with John Reinstein. And then they refused to do so. They refused to renegotiate the deal with him. CC Motion says, I felt he also felt extremely undermined as he had nothing to do with the team's success. I think he had everything to do with the team's success, Jerry Krause. He's the one that made the team. He's the one that brought in the players. You know, but I think that he hoped to be the hero because he produced. Remember, Rhinestone put him in charge, right? He produced a championship team. He did. Not in the way how he expected, but he produced a championship team. And he even was very elated when they won the first championship. He was highly elated. He was very happy because that brings the company money and more people and more, you know. And Michael became this big superstar. You know, he was a big superstar before, but he really was a huge superstar after because, you know, now he had a championship. So this worked out for everybody. But Jerry still never got the recognition he was supposed to get. And he really hands down, Jerry's supposed to get that recognition. You know, hands down to this day, Jerry deserves the recognition that he deserves. Guy says alien monkey. Okay, Stanmar Chekhov. But say what you want. Jerry is the guy that caused it to happen, and then he's also the guy that destroyed it, sadly. But let's just get to it. So the second thing he did was he removed Charles Oakley off the team without letting Michael Jordan know, the star player. You should at least let your players know your moves. Now, Jerry says that, you know, Michael was watching a boxing match when they were trying to make the deal, and they finally got the trade down. So they made the thing happen because he was looking at Bill Cartwright really hard. Really hard. He really wanted to get Bill Cartwright for the team. And he eventually got Bill Cartwright, but the trade happened so quickly that he wasn't able to inform Michael. Now, I don't know if that's an excuse, and I think it is. With such a fundamental change, Charles Oakley delivered 20 rebounds a game, offensive and defensive. Bill Cartwright was not going to bring that, but he was going to bring blocking. He was also going to bring a center position for the Bulls to anchor the triangle offense. Even though there was no triangle offense yet, Cartwright came in 88. I believe he was working with Phil Jackson to make this happen. But Jordan wasn't notified. The star player of the team was not notified about this. And of course, Jordan was close to Charles Oakley, or Charles Oakley was kind of like a guy that protected Michael Jordan as well, as was a good friend of Michael Jordan. And so this was very devastating to Michael Jordan. It was like, what the hell? Okay. A lot of players that Jordan went at, like Will Perdue and so on, it was because of Jerry Krause. He had an animosity to these players. And he tried to play that game with Bill Cartwright, and Bill Cartwright was like, I will rip your head off. 7 foot tall Bill Cartwright he wasn't playing that. You know what I'm saying? Now, Jerry Krause is also responsible for Scottie Pippen coming on the team and Horace Grant. Now, not so much Horace Grant. He wanted another player, Mr. Wolf, to be on the team. He was hot up about Wolf and Pippen coming. It was between they you remember there's multiple players you're looking at. Horace Grant was one, and then his favorite was going to be Wolf, and he had a good relationship with Wolf, so he wanted him on the team. It ended up that even the owner of the Bulls and the whole coaching staff, they overruled that, and so that's why Horace Grant came in instead of having Doug as the coach. Phil Jackson was promoted to becoming head coach of the Bulls, and you had Pippen, Horace Grant that year, and then you had Bill Cartwright, and I think Will Perdue the next year. BJ came in, I think, in 89, or was it 88? It could have been 88 as well. But the point I'm making is Krause was the guy that had to make those deals and try to make it happen. Now, everybody always says Michael Jordan carried the Bulls on his shoulders and Michael Jordan this and Michael Jordan had nothing to do with that stuff. All right? He had nothing to do with the recruits and stuff. That was Jerry Krause. This is very important to understand. There was a team that was being built. And I talked about this before, that the team was built around Michael Jordan. And Jerry Krause was really good at it. He was really good at getting the right guy. Scottie Pippen was the guy for Michael Jordan at the time. And even though Michael Jordan wasn't advised, Bill Cartwright worked into the equation because Bill and was it Bill and Perdue or Bill and BJ? They worked into the equation. Of course, Michael Jordan drilled them immediately. And then I think the last set of players, I think John Paxson came in 88 with Cartwright. So I think it was Paxson, Cartwright. They came from other teams, of course, NBA teams. Bill Cartwright had the seniority, had the experience. You know, Oakley wasn't as experienced. And he had a certain degree of leadership that he gave to the team. He and Paxson actually brought a certain leadership to the team that stabilized the team. And then again, the nice thing about these senior players, Cartwright had children, he had a family, Paxson too. So you end up with a lot more stability to the young bucks out there. You know, Oakley, you know, Jordan and Oakley, they would go on these, you know, crazy whatever runs and stuff. But now you had a certain amount of discipline, seniority, that kind of thing, and experience. Cartwright had already played with some of the greats. So in retrospect, Cartwright was the best. Again, this guy was brilliant. Jimmy Krause, he nailed it. I don't know how he nailed it so well, but he nailed it when it came to those players. He really was a brilliant selector. And because of his brilliance, I guess, sometimes people are genius and they're not fully understood what their moves are. And I guess he really wanted to get Bill, and he finally got Bill. And so he had to trade Oakley quickly to get Bill, and he didn't get to inform Michael Jordan. But he learned from that mistake. Brought in Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson made, you know, Tex Winter was Phil Jackson's mentor. And Tex Winter was a much more, again, senior person, much more stable. That kind of brought stability to the team. Understood what Michael Jordan, it wasn't about scoring a lot of points. It was about winning games. You know, Tex Winter, you know, but Phil Jackson had that sort of balance where he knew how to deal with the players, and he established himself early. So when Phil Jackson came in, he laid down the law. Michael Jordan couldn't do this anymore. He couldn't it wasn't about just scoring points. It wasn't about having things his way and doing things his way. Now he had to follow a system. And Phil Jackson, when he tried to do certain things, Jerry Krause would stop him from doing it because Jerry Krause now was afraid that Phil Jackson would take his job eventually. And that fear led to Jerry Krause stopping Phil Jackson from doing X, Y, and Z sometimes when you needed certain things to happen. So Phil Jackson, Jerry Krause, here's the thing about Jerry Krause. You need to understand. He is a great recruiter. In terms of a general manager, in terms of certain things that had to do with general management, he wasn't really good at that. But one thing he was good at was recruiting, right? And unfortunately for Jerry Krause, he didn't realize that by allowing Phil Jackson to do what he was doing, I don't think Phil Jackson had any interest in being a general manager. He was interested in coaching. As you could clearly see, Phil Jackson, he's coached and then he left. He's coached with the LA Lakers and he's left. He's not part of an organization. And Jerry Krause didn't see that. He was afraid of that. And so as a result, Phil Jackson was getting more and more, rising up more and more. People were listening to him, having more respect for him. And that led to Jerry Krause wanting to get rid of Phil Jackson, even with all the success, because Phil Jackson kept on butting heads with him. And then Phil Jackson seemed to be growing more and more support with everybody. And Jerry Krause felt probably betrayed because he brought in Phil Jackson. And it seems as though things were going another direction, as if the league didn't need him. Then I think there was there was the year before, in 1997, Jackson and Krause came to a head. And as a result of that, Jerry Krause told Phil Jackson to his face and then publicly that regardless of whether they win a ring or not, Phil Jackson's gone. All right. And the person that replaced him was the coach that came after Phil Jackson, Tim whatever. And then just to show you the extent of the friction between them, he invited everybody and this guy who was supposed to replace Phil Jackson to his daughter's wedding, and Phil Jackson was nowhere to be seen in that. So he was hell-bent on getting rid of Phil Jackson. So the 1998 season, that's why Phil Jackson called it The Last Dance. It's Phil Jackson who said that, all right? Now, here's the thing. The thing is, people make it sound like Phil Jackson was pitting the team against management. It wasn't that. Phil Jackson was trying to keep the team together. He was trying to have them have a common bond, and he was trying to insulate them from everything. And the general manager doesn't need to know what the team is planning. All he needs to know is that they're getting wins, right? So to say that they left out Jerry Krause, maybe Jerry Krause felt left out, but it wasn't really important because that's not his job. His job was to just generally manage. And if Phil Jackson's doing a good job, right. He gave Phil Jackson a lot of problems when Phil Jackson asked for certain things to happen. And he was kind of an impediment because, again, politically, he felt like his job was in jeopardy when his job wasn't really in jeopardy. Even though in the Last Dance year, when Michael Jordan was asked if Phil Jackson should be the general manager for the Bulls team, Jordan was like, yeah, because Jordan just didn't like Jerry Krause, okay? But he really should have. He should have been able to compartmentalize and separate Jerry Krause overreaching and the fact that Jerry Krause brought him there and that he was the one thing Jerry Krause was really good at was recruiting people. He really was good at that, you know? And so there was that. Of course, Michael Jordan was a guy who he preyed on weakness. So if you had any kind of weakness in you, he would bully you. So, you know, he started bullying Jerry Krause. Now, so there was that problem. The next problem was Michael Jordan had to learn how to play the kind of team sports, the kind of triangle offense, the kind of defense that Phil Jackson wanted. It didn't come overnight. And in practice, Michael Jordan was a beast. Nobody could really defend him. It was only later on with Pete Myers was a guy that, you know, he could go with Michael and just, you know, play game after game after game, and Michael wouldn't break him down. No matter what Michael said, Pete Myers could take it, okay? That's in the second three-peat. So in the first three-peat, they had nobody. And Michael used to play religiously with Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen would be on the opposite team. So Scottie Pippen knew Michael pretty good. And Michael would shit talk. Michael was like shit talking in practice like crazy. And as you know, Larry Bird was a shit talker too. And because of how severe and brutal his shit talk was, guys would come to blows sometimes in those practice sessions. Not only that, But guys like Luke Longley, they actually got severely traumatized by that, and it became very difficult for Luke Longley to assimilate back into natural life. He divorced his wife, the aggressive shit talking nature. But of course, that's street ball, right? Michael Jordan wasn't doing anything different to street ball, trying to get in guys' heads and stuff like that. But it's just how intense he was all the time. All the time. So when people talk about Michael, calling people bitch and punching people and stuff, that's street ball, though. That's street ball. That's not, that's not. But I do understand. I do understand that, yes, it will rub people the wrong way and stuff like that. But, the guy is just so competitive. I've been in street ball. I see how people behave, right? Street ball, man, almost, they come to cut, some guys come to cut you, man. They gonna cut you. Street ball. Okay, that's how it is. Some people shoot other people in street ball. So that's the mentality he came in there with. A street ball mentality for the NBA. And he wasn't backing down for shit. So that was Jordan. Okay, that's just the way he was. He was playful, he was funny at times, he would make fun of people and stuff like that. But he was so fucking intense. He was so fucking intense. And of course, basketball back then was not like basketball now. Guys elbowed, they'd sweep your legs out under you, they clothesline you when you go to the hoop, And Will Perdue, he was kind of like a Bill Lambert, a milder version. But, Will Perdue, Jordan be coming off a screen, collect an elbow, come off a screen again, click an elbow again. Will Perdue moving screen, elbow him. And, Jordan would punch Will Perdue. Now, Will Perdue is a big motherfucker, 7 foot tall. So Jordan punching Will Perdue is like a little 3-year-old slapping a big grown man, right? Perdue could take it. And of course, Purdue probably erupted, and everybody got a part down so that Purdue don't slug out Michael Jordan and knock him out. Jordan, Kobe Bryant is Jordan 2.0. Right? Kobe was about to fight Shaq, and Shaq was gonna kill Kobe. Shaq could fight, okay? But that's the tenacity that Michael Jordan had, all right, and the passion he had for the game. And so he rubbed certain teammates the wrong way. In The Last Dance, none of that was shown. Some of it was shown, but as if Michael Jordan had the upper hand. He was a big dog. Nobody could talk back to him. But that's not how it went, okay? Guys used to trash talk right back at him. All right? They'd be talking mad trash in his ass. And it was trash talk all the time. It's just straight fire, okay? And if y'all know Phil Jackson, as Stacey King said, Phil Jackson was the king of trash talk too. When Stacey King came, he had to do like he came to the Bulls and looked like they wanted to trade him, whatever. They wanted to get him in there, and the coaches came and they was asking him, come on, man, let's come out here and show us what you got. And a player was coming towards him, was supposed to take it easy, and he was supposed to show what he got. And the player played him fucking hard and was elbowing him, knocking him down, man, slashing him. So Tracy couldn't take it anymore. He said, hey, man, look here. You can't be doing that. You can't be fouling me. And the player was like, you a fucking pussy? Are you a fucking pussy? Play! And he threw the ball at him. That was Phil Jackson. He didn't even know he was playing Phil Jackson. Because Phil Jackson played for the Knicks, and they won a title with the Knicks. So Phil Jackson had championship experience. He knew what it was to be a world champion. Then he went into coaching, right? And Phil Jackson, for those of you who don't know, he could play. He could really play ball. So that's just a tip of the iceberg. Of course, at the time, Doug Collins was the coach, and Doug Collins was going nuts. Doug Collins was like, yeah, I like him. When he started clothesline Phil Jackson and elbow him too, and it got nasty up in there. I think he knocked down Phil Jackson, and Phil Jackson was on the ground, And Doug is like, whoa, yeah. And he found out he knocked out. He was fighting Phil Jackson and stuff on the basketball court because they wanted to see what kind of tenacity he had and stuff like that. Man, I'm telling you, man, you know what you're getting yourself into in the NBA back in those days. So anyway, the point is, Phil Jackson. Y'all think Phil Jackson was like, a nice kumbaya kind of coach? No, homies. Phil arranged for Jordan versus Pippen teams. Jordan's team versus Pippen team. He arranged that so they would kill us. That they would kill. They were going for the kill. When they're going for the kill. That mentality was the mentality he fostered. And Phil really got to know the players very well. So he had a very tight relationship with them. But having said that, though, like Jerry Krause, certain members of the team, not that they cared, were overlooked. When Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan was a phenom, of course, but Scottie Pippen was overlooked. The role that Bill Cartwright brought to the Bulls, so let me put it to you this way. Michael Jordan was the major scorer on the Bulls team. Scottie Pippen became one of the major scorers on the Bulls team. But while Scottie Pippen was not a major scorer on the Bulls team, Pete Sellers was one. Bill Cartwright was one. Horace Grant was one. Now, Pippen, in the first season, Pippen and Horace Grant came off the bench. And by the playoffs, Pippen was so important, he became a starter I believe it was in the Cavs game or one of those games. I think it was playing against the Cavs. He became a starter. And he got more minutes. And Pippen put up 20-something points, I think, as a starter for the Bulls. So there were signs that Pippen could do more than just be a small forward. Horace Grant was a true small forward. Horace Grant could do a lot of things with his hands in the air as he's moving around. But Pippen was different. And Isaiah Thomas actually identified Pippen's skills, and John Salley started talking about it. And of course, Phil Jackson also spoke about Pippen, how much Pippen could do and the things that Pippen did for the team. And that really started to evolve. But the point I'm making is Pippen got overlooked. Everybody always thought Pippen was a sidekick, just like how Jerry Krause was not ever noted for his brilliance in recruiting and also facilitating certain things. So there's a lot of things Jerry Krause did to facilitate the Bulls and whatever Phil Jackson wanted. And yes, later on, he felt like Phil Jackson was challenging him in the second three-peat. But in the beginning, when they got that three-peat, that first three-peat, he was very facilitating. Whatever Phil Jackson wanted, he facilitated because Phil Jackson delivered what Phil Jackson promised him. He said, I'll promise you a championship in 2 years. And if they don't get a championship in 2 years, I owe you $50,000. So Phil Jackson delivered on that. And so Jerry Krause was going with him on quite a lot of things in the first three-peat. But as Phil Jackson started to rise and become more prominent, Jerry Krause was worried about, his status as general manager, because suppose this guy becomes general manager of the Bulls, and I ain't got nothing to do. But I think, again, that Krause, in a way, it's sad because whereas the team that was under Phil Jackson, everybody was thinking of one accord and trying to do everything, particularly after the last Piston loss they had. Everybody started training together. Everybody started working together. Everybody was on one accord. The head coaches, everybody was. But Jerry Krause, the general manager, was not a part of that. So that, why I say this is something kind of, I know this ain't necessary, but it kind of is that if Jerry Krause was on the court with that team and in those practice sessions, he'd be in one accord with all of them. All of them would have been in one accord that, yes, this is for the Bulls establishment. but we all on the same page. We all want the same thing. And Jerry would stop thinking about himself so much and him being in the spotlight and just think about the team and this team representing the Bulls and how much money that franchise could make, you know, because it's all about the dollars and cents at the end of the day. But he was kind of excluded from that. And he was in this administrative bubble where, yes, got to get the wins. But at the end of the day, in a way, you want to be kind of down there with the people who are doing the work for you. I tell people, if you're an owner and you have employees or you have people under you or you're to manage people under you, you got to get down to their level, if you want to call it that, and get down in the mud and the mire. You know, that TV show where a general manager or head of a franchise would go undercover and work with workers. That's something that you should do, but not undercover. You should do it as general manager. Just come down there and see what's up. And don't go in your general manager clothes. Get in slacks. Get in the same gear they have. Wear the same thing. Sit down on the court and just sit down and listen. Because a lot of times this has to do with perspective. You know, Michael Jordan's now in a managerial position. He knows it's different. He now gets to sit in what Jerry Krause's shoes was. And as an owner, he now gets to sit in the shoes of John Reinstein. So what I'm saying is, it's a perspective thing you have to have. And I think because these guys had different perspectives, the peace couldn't happen. Not necessarily they're bad people. Jerry Krause, probably not a bad person. Michael Jordan, probably not a bad person. Scottie Pippen, probably not a bad person. Coach Phil Jackson, probably not a bad person. But everybody has different tendencies. Everybody comes with what they are. You see what I'm saying? They can't change. They can't change. Right? And we have to stop demonizing each other and see each other for what we are. This is the reality of the situation. This is who he is. This is who he is. This is who he is. We're not going to be judgmental. Now, the more you have invested in something is the more you become judgmental of other people. Because, you know, stakes are very high. Right? But truthfully speaking, if you know somebody is the way they are, then to get along with them, at least, you don't have to spend the rest of your life with them. To get along with them, you know what they are? Okay. So you know how to get to common ground with them and work with that. Right? Michael Jordan is a strong personality. Right? He's a very famous person. So it's kind of hard for him to just go out in public and do what he wants to do. So he goes to other countries and stuff where people don't make a big deal about him, and he carries on his life there, right? Phil Jackson, big personality as well, has produced really great stuff with the Lakers and with the Bulls. Scottie Pippen, bigger than life guy as well, but more. Even though he don't really spend time with the common man, probably a guy that will show up for, you know, a common man something, right? So all of them have arrogance. Scottie Pippen, don't let it fool you. He got arrogance. He's got a certain ear. Phil Jackson, same thing. Michael Jordan, same thing. Jerry Krause, same thing. Okay. Horace Grant, same thing. When you've been on the elite level and you know how to do things at the highest level, you're going to have a certain air of arrogance in your field. It is what it is. Now, having said all of that, Phil Jackson rubbed Scottie Pippen the wrong way. He said that Phil Jackson is racist. I don't know if Phil Jackson's racist or not. I don't know Phil Jackson like that. But what I can tell you is Scottie Pippen come from a place where racism is prevalent. So maybe there's truth to that. Maybe there's not. But I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this part. Phil Jackson did what worked. Now, was it something that kind of undermined Scottie Pippen's leadership of the Bulls at the time when he called for the ball? Yes, but at the same time, it worked. Tony Kukoc scored the points. Scottie Pippen sat out, and clearly Scottie Pippen was affected by that, and he has, even though he apologized and everything, he had it in his book, okay? And he feels like Phil Jackson is a personality that is still kind of about himself, still, you know? And he feels like Jordan's that same kind of guy as well. I'll say this. Regardless of whether Phil Jackson is about himself or Michael Jordan's about themselves, because Scottie probably felt like he was left out to dry still. Like they say to the public that, you know, they looking out for his interest, but he didn't feel like they had his back, okay? And on several occasions, he felt that way. Having said that, that's how he feels. Now, for him, that's a reality. It's up to them to, if they so care, reach out and address that conversation. Right? And again, Scottie Pippen's had a number of things that happened in his life, like Michael Jordan. They've had a number of divorces and all that kind of stuff. And understandable. When you're that competitive, when you're that a killer, you're going to have an attitude in life that you have to readjust yourself. And I'm sure Michael has gone through his fair share of bumps and bruises because of that. And Scottie Pippen and all of these guys, they're very successful in something, but that same attribute that you have is kind of hard to turn it off. You know, the same attribute that's a plus in a certain environment may be a minus in another environment. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were the absolute, when it comes to basketball, they were the ultimate duo. I want to set the record straight, though. I truly believe that Scottie Pippen was Michael Jordan's equal. He did everything Michael Jordan could do, but the difference was Scottie Pippen didn't care about throwing down 40 plus points every night or 30 something points a night. He wasn't interested in scoring so much as he was interested in winning. And I think that aspect of Scottie Pippen rubbed off on Michael Jordan eventually, because Jordan was putting down 63 points, 69 points, 50 something points before Scottie Pippen came. And in the same series where they moved on to the next level, and I've shown you guys true graphics and so on, the 1990-91 playoffs, Michael Jordan started scoring so much less that he scored, I think, against the Cavs, he scored 20-something points. His losing games, the games where he lost, where the Bulls lost, he was scoring like 40-something points and so on. And he realized it's not about scoring points, it's about winning and getting as much players into it. And actually, he knew that way before Phil Jackson even came. I saw a game in which he was playing against the Knicks, I think it was, or something like that. And they won, but he scored 20 points, only 20 points in the game. And he turned around and said, yeah, fans want to see me score a lot. But some games, it's all about winning, and it's not about me scoring a whole set of points. He got that point. I don't know who it was that was the coach at the time, and it seemed to be early in his career. And he knew this. I mean, he'd been team captain and all of that, so he knew about all this stuff, right? And the point I'm making is that Phil Jackson sort of emphasized it to him. And like I said before, Scottie Pippen had the right idea. The right idea is it's not about scoring and, scoring a lot of points. Now, when the team needs you to score because nobody else is scoring, well, yeah, of course, they're going to go to you, right? But, and that happened many a time with the Bulls, okay? So Michael Jordan was a kind of anchor when it came to scoring, and he did many other things, obviously. He was a very, very, very skilled player, Michael Jordan. But Scottie Pippen was as skilled or even more skilled, as John Sally said. Scottie Pippen had a different approach to certain things, like defending. He defend multiple people, even though he's guarding one guy. So he would double team, and he's following the ball. Scottie Pippen would be following the ball. Michael Jordan also used to anticipate steals, but he wouldn't do it like Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen would be moving from person back to his man. person to back to his man. Person, he's reading the defense, but he's moving person back to his man. Person, he's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back. Michael Jordan would, when the Bulls collapsed on a play, Michael Jordan would pick a guy or real quick hands. These two guys, and again, I could see that Pippen and Jordan were training together because the technique they used to steal the ball or strip the ball from the other guy was very quick. They'd either tap the ball out from under you, from behind you, or they would steal the ball by blocking you, but coming from behind you. So I thought it was always kind of like predator-like how they did it. And both of them did that. But Scottie defended multiple players at once. Whereas Jordan, he generally would read a play or read what's happening. He didn't waste energy trying to defend, because Scottie Pippen's footwork and Michael Jordan's footwork are two different footwork, right? Pippen's footwork is very active, very quick. He's constantly moving his feet. Jordan was more of the standardized footwork, but he would spring into action explosively if he was going to get into a steal. He had very quick hands as well. So Pippen would be frantically all around you, all around you, all around you. You don't know where he is at any given period in time, and he picked the ball from you. And I guess because Pippen was a small guy, he was 6'2", and then he had this growth spurt, and probably that's the way how he defended all the time. So he had the small man quickness with a big man's body. That was the thing with Pippen. Jordan was more, he guarded you the normal way, but his quick hands, he would reach in and get the ball. And when you think you got the ball guarded, no. And he would intercept passes as well. But the mentality of the Bulls in general, Cartwright, Caffey, Kerr, Kukoc, the mentality of the Bulls was very aggressive defense. Now, the times when they stood around and watched the other players play, that's when they got in trouble. But once their defense was active and they were actively buzzing at you, you were in trouble, And, of course, Jordan and Pippen were known as the Dobermans. They were vicious, right? So the thing about it is Pippen, like Jerry Krause, didn't get the kind of shine that they wanted to get. Well, I don't know if Pippen wanted to shine per se, but I think The Last Dance kind of hurt Pippen, and not only the way he was portrayed negatively, but also the way how the team members and the other players, they over-glorified Jordan. And they had a series of documentaries. I put up some documentaries in my community section where you guys could check out. So, there are a series of documentaries that were more balanced. Jordan was definitely the star player. Then Pippen became a star player with Michael Jordan. So they had two options of how to attack, but I still feel like these documentaries didn't highlight even though they had all the players talking, had Horace Grant, all the leader players, particularly Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright and John Paxson. And so they were all speaking about it. And go check my community section if you want to see the document. It was pretty good. It was quite holistic. But the point I'm making is that it was a team effort, and Scottie Pippen always felt like he was in Michael Jordan's shadow, because the difference is he was really doing stuff on that team, and night after night after night, like that's something Jordan could not do. And that's what even the coach Phil Jackson said. That would be too much for Michael Jordan to just bring the ball up the court and stuff. Hold on a second. Let me just get out of here. I got to get out of here. But hold on. I just need to take a break for a second. yeah, so there was times when he would, Michael Jordan would take out his frustrations, I guess, on certain players. Will Purdue, he tried it with Steve Kerr, but Steve Kerr fired back. He tried it with Bill Cartwright. Bill Cartwright fired back. You had this kid. I forgot what his name is right now. Good player. A rookie. He would blow out the rookie and stuff like that. And I would say this. I would say, as Scottie Pippen said, it didn't necessarily inspire the players to play any better, and especially if they were doing the best they could. For you to be blowing out a player like that, it's not. Again, that's not necessarily inspiring, right? And so, why Scottie Pippen could be so critical of Michael Jordan and say the things he said about him is because, again, Scottie Pippen understood the game of basketball, understood what Michael Jordan was. And he's not trying to, and even with when he talks about Phil Jackson, the way how he talks about Phil Jackson, it's because he knows where these guys came from. He knows what they did. And I understand why he's saying they needed to have some sort of respect for Jerry Krause as the general manager. So I get where Scottie Pippen's coming from. Now, having said that, I'll say this. These guys don't need to talk with each other every day of the week. They don't need to be chummy buddies. But the one thing they need to do is bring peace to the situation. Why? Because they're legends and they need to go back into Chicago, and all of them need to be seen so that they inspire the people of Chicago. They are a legacy and a dynasty. That's great. And it would be nice for Michael Jordan to visit there and get honored with Scottie Pippen and the whole team, the whole crew, the first and second crew, to inspire the younger players in Chicago. I think that the Bulls team, they're not doing so great. They were doing great with Rose, but he got injured, and then I think they traded him or something as a free agent. But the Bulls can be built back. I think Bill Paxson, I think John Paxson is the guy there. I think it still could happen, but they need to. These guys need to come back together, and they need to see each other. And I think that the United Center, I think it is, where they have reunions every year. I think for all the Bulls members to come back, I think it's a nice thing for them to reunite, because people, you just never know, man. People could die anytime. Anything can happen. And good or bad those memories may be, it is important to heal wounds and to be right with people, because you never know what could happen to you in life. And you can't just not care about it. You have to be able to try and bring closure. I have problems with my family, but that doesn't stop me from going to visit them, even if it's once a year. I see my family, because you never know what could happen. And people are getting older, and people are dying, prominent people, everything. And I heard Stacey King say the same thing. Jordan and Pippen are two of the most foundational people, and Phil Jackson are two of the most foundational people of the Bulls team and its success. And to replicate that success, you have to embrace these people. And for these people to be in the same building and they still have issues with one another, no, they need to hash it out. And yes, Michael and Pippen, one of the greatest duos ever. They need to hash it out. I don't care how difficult Pippen thinks Michael is, or how difficult Michael thinks Pippen is. It's for the future of the Bulls franchise. Think about it that way. Got to think beyond yourself. Pippen says he's a team player. Okay, well, the team is the Bulls, and how the Bulls' future happens, and you finished your career at the Bulls too. You should be invested in the Bulls' future. You, Michael, Phil Jackson, you all have all been part of the Bulls franchise. So, yes, Phil Jackson went on to L.A. and other places, and Horace Grant, but Stacey King sticks around, and he's trying to see what he could do. And for the fans, for the people to see you guys together, hash it out, man. Work it out. Life ain't that hard. Pippen's great player. And I know Michael Jordan has said there's no Michael Jordan, when you say Michael Jordan, you got to say Scottie Pippen. I know he says that, and I know he hasn't said anything negative about Scottie Pippen verbally after The Last Dance, even though he said some negative things about Scottie Pippen in The Last Dance. And maybe he's in some way correct that Scottie Pippen probably is selfish in some respects. But they need to bring the truth of the situation. Michael Jordan was a selfish guy himself, you know, and Michael Jordan needs to at least acknowledge, hey man, I never thought about it, how I represented you, and how you are as a person and stuff, and I'm wrong about that. And do a proper documentary or something. But at the end of the day, these guys have been part of something that ain't gonna happen again. And they're special people. Everybody on that team, from the coaching staff all the way down to the players on the bench who got limited time, they're all special people. And another thing, Jerry Krause made that happen. And so no matter what, and if Jerry Krause's widow is still alive, y'all need to go visit her and treat her kindly. Y'all need to patch up the wounds, man, because this is how the Bulls will move forward. The franchise. It ain't going to move forward. Y'all got to correct the wrongs of the past. Some people have to apologize for certain things. Other people might be like, my bad. Or other people might say, well, hey, still don't see it your way. But you know what? I want you to know I want you to know I ain't got no bad feelings too. When you can end up saying something like that, because, I mean, all these people I'm speaking about, they have their good ways. And clearly, they learned to work together to become world champions 6 times. And yes, it's a travesty that they didn't get the opportunity to continue winning until they stopped. It was a travesty because people had misunderstandings. But now is their opportunity to do something that they should have done. Pass the torch to the next generation of Bulls. Being such an epic team, you should have some sort of responsibility for seeing the next generation of Bulls do better than you. And yes, Michael Jordan has his responsibilities with the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know if they're called Hornets anymore. But Bobcats, is it the Charlotte Bobcats? Whatever they call. But at the end of the day, I'm sure Michael Jordan will agree with this. Because I know he's hired Dickie Simpsons. I know he's hired a number of people under his establishment. And that shows, again, that Michael Jordan is a nice guy, no matter what people say. He's blunt, he's to the point, but he's a nice guy. And when you get past his bluntness, you'll see he's a much more sincere guy, much more loyal, much more trusting guy. He might have felt betrayed by Scottie Pippen when Scottie Pippen said the things he said. But then again, you started it, Michael. You started saying bad things about Scottie Pippen in your Last Dance. I guess to counterbalance your behavior in the Last Dance. But again, let me say this. There's no right or wrong in certain things. People are who they are. Michael Jordan is who he is. Scottie Pippen is who he is. Phil Jackson and the whole clan of characters that form the Bulls are who they are. The important thing is you guys work together to win. So work together again and get another win. This win is for the Bulls that are up and coming. The Bulls who will join the Bulls team. Let the Bulls legacy continue. If the Bulls are worse off after you guys, then you didn't do your job. You got one more job to do. Got to get the next generation rolling and the Bulls team to be successful again, regardless of what happened before. And also, you guys were able to work under all kinds of conditions to become world champions and winners. And you're telling me now, in your later part of the years, when it's more important to form contacts with each other and to stay with each other and share the experiences of your wins and your losses. You could just talk about basketball. You don't have to talk about nothing else. And the challenges you guys may face. Michael Jordan would love to have some advice from Scottie Pippen and all these other guys concerning his Bobcats. Maybe even work with him. I'm saying you guys shared something very special together. And now it's time for it to be replicated again. The story isn't over. And that's the thing that these guys need to understand. And there has to be a certain degree of selfishness and ego that keeps you guys from coming together for a greater good. Just as how y'all was hell-bent on winning, y'all should be hell-bent now on getting a win for all of you. No matter what your status is, reach out to people now. If they're going to die tomorrow, and then what? Then you're going to say, I regret not doing this or regret not doing that. No, do it now. People are dying like flies. You just never know what tomorrow brings. And you're going to go in their funeral and talk about how good they were. Kobe was here. Kobe's gone. It could happen to anybody. Kobe wasn't old. Kobe was still in his prime as a man with his daughter. So much potential. Don't wait till people die to have to go to their funeral to say good things about them. God damn it. Do it now. Michael Jordan, great basketball player, great leader. Do it now. Somebody has to reach out the olive branch and start the process. But quite frankly, you guys should stay in contact every year, at least once a year. Nobody's asking you to come together every day. You're all busy people. But at least once every year, God damn it. I do it now with my alumni in my school. People die like flies. And all of a sudden, you ain't got nobody. You by yourself. No, don't do that. I'm going to catch you guys later. I'm what you need. Peace.